Welcome, everyone, to the Meaningful Hearts Podcast, where we discuss the everyday questions that make us or break us if we let them. I am your host, Drew. Take my hand and let's walk this journey together. Welcome back to another episode. It's a mystery topic. I don't know what it is, but my lovely co-host, Danny, will tell me. Danny, take it away.
Well, thank you for such a lovely introduction. So, I thought it would be a fun idea to ask the main host, or previous main host, I guess, a question about one of his own previous episodes. So, I'll refresh your mind just so that you know what we're talking about. And then you'll see what my question is. And I also think that it'll be very applicable to what we aim to do for others, and you'll see how it all ties together.
I love this. Automation. Let's go. I love how this is going.
All right, so the episode that I want to revisit is actually the first episode that you ever recorded. So do you remember what that was?
Self-love is the first episode.
How to love yourself. So the question was, how does your physical appearance affect how you feel about yourself and your attitude towards life, right? You asked about how you can deal with self-image issues and push forward. And I remember the change that was happening in your life at that moment in time, which, fun fact, we actually hadn't met yet, but just a fun fact. But in any case, the change that you were going through in your life was you recently had cut your hair off, all of it off.
Yes.
And you were just talking about how people can really deal with change. You gave a little background of how it came to be, but you essentially talked about how people can deal with these things. And I remember from listening to it that some of the things that you said were that sometimes you just have to really man up and push forward. There are things that get thrown in our lives, and that we have to take a step back and dial in and look at the bigger picture. And essentially you were saying that the only thing that we can take care of is the things that we can change, like our diet, our exercise, our health, and let go of the things that you can't. Like if you just so happen to be balding like you were, then that's something that you just have to learn how to work through in that regard.
Yes, this is 100% true. I did say this. I can't even retract what I said. This is the problem with starting a podcast, by the way. You say stuff, you record stuff, it's on the internet, it's there.
Yes, it is. So what I gathered from that episode is essentially what you were saying, right? Sometimes it really is just about manning up and pushing forward. Because there are some things that when we think about it and we take a step back, we kind of realize that maybe they're not as significant as we thought they were. Whether it's something like cutting your hair, or a birthmark that you might have that you might feel self-conscious about, or a scar that you might have from like an injury or something along those lines, right? Those are smaller things that for some of us it's easier. And then there are other people who, you know, some of these things are not so much of a small bump in the road that they can just get over. So my question to you is, are you ready?
Drum roll.
Yeah, I was about to do it, but I don't know how to do it.
Here with it. Sounds like the cops knocking on my door.
So my question to you is, what about those people who it is a really big deal to? What are some of the things that you would recommend for them? You know, and I think a lot about some of the clients that I work with. Some of them are teenagers, and teenagers have a different concept of what beauty is, what self-image actually means. So if you tell if we were to be talking to like a teenager, right, and you tell them something, you just gotta man up and push forward. While that's very true, a lot of these teenagers, I know I certainly heard this from my own mom, like, you just gotta suck it up and deal with it. And sometimes that can be very invalidating to people. I know that I've experienced. So for those people out there who really do struggle, even whether it's a really big thing, like a really big scar, or a small thing, like a really small scar, how would you go about helping those who it is a big deal to, who can't just quote unquote man up and push forward? Dun dun dun.
Well, I think that in the context of the way that I said that, and for the audience that I'm speaking to, right, there is a level of maturity that goes along with being told something like that. I know as a teenager or somebody young, being told that myself would have definitely put me in a bad place. I mean, still at times when I'm going through, depending on how tough it is for me, depending on how I feel about something, being told that is invalidating. It is kind of like, wow, I'm trapped. I have no way out. There's nobody that's gonna throw me a rope and help me. But I think more or less it was for me to tell myself who felt trapped that you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision on whether you're going to live with feeling a certain way about the way you look, or just owning it and saying it's not that bad. And I think for the longest time, I knew the day was coming. I was like in denial about it, I guess, to an extent. I was like, oh, I'll just have everybody else make me feel good about me keeping my hair. But I knew that it was looking worse and worse and worse. It was not looking good for me. And I literally had this point where I was like, you know what? One day I'm going to have to shave all my hair off and be bald. I was like, I want to do it on my terms when it's not so noticeable. When it's going to be a shocker, but like kind of like, wow, I chose to do it. It wasn't something that defined me and I had no choice. So I think that's the approach I took on it. Now, everybody's situation is different. This is, in my opinion, not as major as I thought it was at one point, because I did love my hair. I loved going to get a haircut, and grooming myself was part of,
Who doesn't?
I mean, it was just, especially for a man, I think in a sense it's more defined. And women get their hair cut or trimmed or styled, but it's over a longer period of time. Men have to upkeep a short cut, depending on what you have going on, a beard, all that stuff. It requires more. So for me, that's what I had to make me feel clean and put together. It was like the icing on the cake before you went out somewhere and looked nice. A nice suit, nice shoes, whatever, but a clean cut just set everything off. And it was a novelty. It was beautiful. I loved it. So when I didn't have that anymore, I was like, damn, what am I going to have to make me feel that way?
That's so deep.
So I literally started to like, well, I have a lot of people wish they had a beard. I have a beard. And it's like, wow, like beard is really sets off the rest of the haircut. And at one point I didn't style a beard. When I had the beard was more important to me almost than the hair. It's like, you know what? I still got the beard, which is awesome. And if you're bald and have a beard, you're still, in my opinion, I'm like, I still look good, But it was just seeing myself without hair that was scary. I think that was the scary part. Trying to imagine what I would look like. I felt naked, ashamed and afraid. But I knew that I had the choice and I could liberate myself by just going ahead and doing it. And at that point, when I made the decision to do it, as soon as I made the first cut, I cut my own hair. I was like, oh, I was like, wow, I have a nice head. Wow, I look great. I felt really good. It was like, wow, I was pulling the Band-Aid off. Now, for other people that have maybe similar issues or higher levels of insecurities, there's nothing wrong with being fearful, and there's nothing wrong with being afraid to do something or not doing something and looking for alternate measures. I was not going to spend $20,000 to get, implants or surgeries or anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with going and doing those things. It just wasn't first of all, financially, it just didn't make sense to me. And two, I was like, I'm still falsifying who I am because this is something that's not natural. It's being transplanted. I still wouldn't feel like myself. I feel like I altering my state artificially. I'm all about being organic. Just not that person to I could wear a wig at that point then, and there's plenty of alternatives. But for somebody that's really going through it, especially a teenager, I think the faster you learn how to go through the gauntlet of emotions, because we all go through them. We usually go through them as adults. As kids, we go, for the most part, we're unscathed. For the most part, we don't actually. I mean, we're blessed enough that don't go through really serious life stuff. There are some kids that go through some really heavy stuff, young, and they're so fucking mature. Kids that have cancer, real life threatening things, and they're just so, they take it with stride. It's like, it's admirable. It's like, yo, I have nothing going on in my life. You almost died as a child, and you're like so positive, and it's interesting. But for people that I guess are going through stuff, maybe they're losing their hair in high school, or maybe they're not, they have issues with their bodies or whatever. I think that learning to kind of surround yourself or put yourself or understand other people have gone through that journey, and try to understand them and seek their guidance and see what they went through, see how they handled it. And please, like, if you can handle something on your own, look for help, for proper guidance. Don't just take somebody's word for it off the street and think, if they tell you to go suck it up, that's the thing to do. That was not by any way what I was trying to say in a tough way to somebody. That's, 'cause listen, that could be the difference between somebody doing something crazy and I'm not about that. But it was just more or less, that episode was more for me to say, oh, Andrew, you need to, like, man up in this one. You got it. And I think that obviously, if as you mature in life, and as you become a little more aware of yourself and your abilities, and you leave high school or you leave adolescence, and you realize the world is a lot bigger than you think, and the people that put themselves in this box or this circle and make you pretend that the world is that way, and in reality they're just battling their own demons as well. I think that we all have to overcome something in life. So not trying to stray away too much, but I think that anybody that's really going through it, I think, find a home, or find a sense of community within communities of people that are going through it as well, and try to make more friends like that, and try to be around people that are in tough situations, and that have worked through tough situations, that have been there, have been scared, or have been hopeless. And I think that's part of what I want this community to be. I don't want people that have slayed dragons. I want the person that pulled the sword out of the stone for the first time. I want somebody who did something that nobody expected them to do, and they found the courage when nobody believed in them. So, yeah, that's my that's my take on it, if that helps any.
Wow. Definitely a lot to work with. I thank you for your honesty. Now, I also want you to know that when I said earlier, when you were like, it's about manning up and pushing forward, I didn't think that you were trying to have that same intention that so many people have, as far as invalidating feelings. When I listened to it, that's just where my mind went, as far as like, okay, I hear what you're saying, because you're right. So there's a lot to work with in your response. So I'll try to break it bit by bit. But you are right in the sense of it does require a certain emotional maturity. Now, I gave the example of teenagers and my clients, but that also applies to adults. There are things that in my own life that I've struggled to be less insecure about. And, a common response that you get from people is that it's not a big deal. But people really don't understand how much of a big deal it is, because everybody has different experiences. But I do want you to know, it wasn't I wasn't trying to say that that's what you were saying. Just clarifying.
Of course.
The other stuff that I've heard is, I've heard a couple of things. I think the main thing that resonates with me about what you said is something that I actually tell adult clients in, areas of in their life in general, that this is different in this time. When we're growing up, we feel like we don't have a lot of control over our environments and how it affects our insecurities and our self-image. social media, our homes, stuff like that. So we feel very powerless. But what you said specifically was, you have the power to choose. And I think that that's very true and that's very applicable because we do have the power to choose what we focus on. And granted, depending on where you are developmentally, it's different. But on average, if you can figure out, what I'm hearing is that if you can figure out what you're choosing to invest your time in, focus on other things that you do feel good about, parts of yourself that, help you feel good. I also heard a little bit of that in there. And also the other component that I heard is the importance of community and finding people that can relate to you, not so much in a way where like they're better than you or they've achieved more, but just that they understand where you've been and, seek out help in that way, whether it's a mentor, a teacher, a guidance counselor, or even a therapist, right? That's a little bit of my bias in there, but that's just me. But it is about creating a sense of belonging that you're not the only one. You're not the only one who goes through these things, who feels the way that they feel. We all have something that we feel insecure about. But also to add to what you're saying, I also believe that I kind of heard it in what you're saying, I guess subliminally, that a big part of it is in mindset, right? It's about the mindset that you focus on when you think about self-image issues that you might have, or where you might find yourself comparing yourself on social media or comparing yourself to others or comparing yourself to your friends. But it goes back to what you're choosing to invest your time and your energy in with your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can choose to see, like for yourself, right? You could have chosen to say, oh, man, I'm bald. Like this sucks. My sexiness is gone. My manhood is gone.
Yeah.
But I also heard that you chose to say, you know what? I might be bald, but wow, look at my beard. My beard is really well kept. I really like it, and I can use this to my advantage. So it is about shifting the focus. And I think that for people out in the world, for myself, for you, for anybody listening, that mindset is so important. And I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that it's easy, but it's not impossible because so many people have accomplished this before. Doesn't mean that you can't, I can't, or anybody else can't either. So that was my recap of what you said. I don't know if I missed anything. I also really like we're not looking for people who have slayed dragons. We're people who are looking for people who have just pulled out the sword for the first time, because the smallest accomplishment.
Sword in the stone.
Yeah, that. What did I say?
Pull out the sword for the first time, but in essence, yeah, the sword in the stone. If anybody's seen that movie, obviously a wimpy kid who literally nobody else, all the strongest people couldn't remove Excalibur from the stone, and this kid comes along and pulls it out. And that's what it is. I want people that are liberating themselves for the first time.
Yeah, it's a little, and it's a little cliche and a little corny, but it's still very applicable. That small accomplishments, if you can go from seeing, I don't know, if you have like a mole that you feel embarrassed about or a scar that you feel ashamed of, it's the scar, the mole, the baldness, it's not going to change, but your perception of it can change. For myself, I've bit my nails for a really long time, up until the last couple months. And I realized that part of it was I kept seeing my nails as ugly nails, and therefore, if you set your limitations, you get to keep them. So because I kept seeing my nails as ugly, I would keep biting them. So part of it was, oh, you know what? My hands are nice. And then it progressed, right? Because again, it's not easy, but it is in steps. Instead of saying, my nails are ugly, or like I'm trying to stop biting my nails, it went from, oh, I think that my hands are okay. Then it went to, my hands are pretty. Then it went to, my nails are beautiful. And now I have some of them that are chipped and a little broken, but for the most part, they're doing really well. Yes. So I think that it also relates as well. I ramble sometimes, when I'm inspired.
You inspired me. Even those questions you asked, it 100% brings a lot to say. I mean, there's so much to talk about in this space as far as self-improvement and self-love. I think that it's still a topic of conversation no matter what. You know, looking at yourself in the mirror, right? Whether it's the way you feel internally, externally, or even about your life, just in general. I think that we have to really be our best friends first and see ourselves as people from the outside and look at ourselves, because through peripherals or through the way we see things, it's always out of our heads and we see other beings. But we don't actually step outside of ourselves and look at ourselves as a person. So it's very easy to miss us. So you need to love yourself first and foremost, or you're not going to have a great interaction on this planet, and you're not going to get the respect you demand as well. And I think we're going to wrap it up here. That was a heavy conversation. Thank you, Danny, for that interrogation.
Ooh, thank you for letting me put you on the spot.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.